Dr. Seuss, the man we all know and love for creating classic children's books like the Cat.
No, he's trying to ruin childhoods now. He's not Dr. He was already talking about Dr. King and Gandhi. What's up, y'all? It's your boy Malc941. We ain't posting a minute, man. I'm not letting that happen again, y'all. We about to start dropping some videos, man. We're finna start getting back recording. Without further ado, let's get straight in the video.
Greatness is a virtue that many of us aspire to achieve.
I don't know about this video, bro.
The skills we develop or the impact we have on others.
I don't know if I want to watch this, though.
That we wish to be great at. But there's a level of greatness that some of us achieve that goes far beyond what we expect from most people. Where they make such a significant contribution to the world.
We know all these people,
right? We as
a
society have decided that these are the figures who are great enough to be taught in school, great enough to be quoted, and great enough to be revered in our collective conscience. But
which is crazy. In this world with 7 billion people, it is these people that we are all agreeing to do exactly what he just said before.
Process of venerating those who did great things, we often fail to learn the full picture of who they are as people. Only learning the good, but not the bad or ugly side of them. Allowing us
like, come on, bro. We are all human, bro. Wait till we get in the video, y'all. I know I'm pausing early, man. Shut up. Listen, wait till we get in the video, though. The faces that he showed on the thumbnail, I already know some tea about them, right? Let's see, bro.
To succumb to the halo effect, the error we make when a person's achievement allows us to be blind to everything else about them. Now, to clarify, my intention is not to discredit their actual achievements, nor am I interested in canceling anyone. I'm also not going to mention things people did that were unsurprising for their time, because applying today's expectations on the people of yesterday makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Most people in human history were probably racist, or sexist, or homophobic, or whatever else you can think of. So
that's so crazy. Wait, so what is he gonna say then?
I'm not really interested in virtue signaling about how someone 100 years ago said something problematic.
Today's price isn't tomorrow's price,
if what they did contradicts what made them great to begin with, that's fair game. And so, I present to you great people who weren't great people. We'll start with pissing off an entire nation of fake accents by talking about Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill, or just Churchill, better known as that guy who defeated Hitler. To this day, the British consistently regard him as one of the greatest Britons to have ever lived.
Churchill.
And if all you know about Churchill are his achievements as the UK's leader against the Nazis, you'd probably feel the same way. But here's the hard truth. If it wasn't for World War II, Churchill would have been remembered for much worse. And that's being generous, since he likely wouldn't be remembered at all. Despite being one of history's most staunch opponents of the Nazi regime and its hateful ideology, he had surprisingly similar views that a racial hierarchy existed, believing that white Protestants were at the top, followed by white Catholics, then Indians, and then Africans. Apparently the other races didn't matter enough.
I was about to say, what about the Asians, Mexicans, and
those ideas were mainstream. But even during that time, his views on racial supremacy to justify British imperialism were considered to be fringe and extreme. As late as 1955, 10 years after defeating the Nazis, he reportedly suggested the phrase, "Keep England white," as a good slogan to use against immigration.
That's just crazy. Yo, like, you literally I don't get it, y'all. I don't get it. Why would you fight against the Nazis and then say something that a Nazi would say?
But perhaps the worst stain on Churchill's legacy is action, or rather, lack of action, during the Bengal famine of 1943. While British officials begged for food supplies to be directed for India, Churchill and his cabinet ordered 170,000 tons of wheat from Australia to be transported to Europe in order to build a stockpile for European civilians. Let me say that again. He ordered food to pass by millions of starving people, who were his British subjects at the time, in order to be used for storage in Europe. But this isn't terribly surprising, given that he once said, "I hate Indians. They are a beastly people with a beastly religion," as well as the famine severity on his view that Indians breed like rabbits. By the time he finally approved for food to be sent, up to 3 million people were already dead. Lastly, the man hated Gandhi with a passion, since he represented a largely peaceful movement advocating for Indian independence. Consistent with earlier points about his belief that certain races were inferior to others and his general disdain for
Aboriginals
India,
and Africans. Did y'all see that? Hold on, bro. Let's look at it. British, Northwestern, Central European, Southern, Eastern European, Asian, Aboriginals, and Africans. Wow.
Were inferior to others and his general disdain for India, Churchill was completely against any form of self-determination for Britain's colonies and actively wished for Gandhi and his movement to die in failure. Now that I've pissed off the English and made goodwill with the Indians, it's time to burn the bridge with my fellow Indians and talk about Gandhi. This man has been rightfully...
We love truth, y'all. We love truth, man. Let's get straight into it. I already know about this guy. This guy was...
celebrated by India for helping to bring about the country's independence from the United Kingdom. And he's admired internationally for his use of non-violent activism. But despite his lifelong battle against the oppression of Indians by the British Empire, he didn't seem to mind knowing that the same empire was also oppressing Africans, referring to them as savages, half-heathen natives, uncivilized, and dirty like animals. How someone can have those beliefs about a group of people, but also insist that those beliefs don't apply to his own group is baffling to say the least. It would be a bit like him saying, "Hey Britain, you need to stop viewing Indians as dirty, uncivilized people and give us independence." Oh wait, you meant the Africans? Yeah, I totally agree with you then. Gandhi also had some disturbing ideas about sex. He would conduct so-called tests on his celibacy in order to determine his self-control. To him, lust was an enemy that needed to be destroyed, and he somehow concluded that the best way to defeat it was to sleep with naked teenagers who were
oh my God, bro.
Were more than half a century younger than him. Despite all these shortfalls of Gandhi, he helped to inspire younger generations throughout his lifetime, convincing leaders around the world to use nonviolent means to advocate for their causes, with one of them being our next great person, Martin Luther King Jr.
No, he coming for my people. He coming for my savior, my leader.
Revered for his powerful and inspiring speeches protesting the injustices black people face in America, MLK is rightfully at the top of many lists when it comes to history's greatest people. But if there's one thing confirming that he's still just a human, it was women. Throughout his life as a civil rights leader, women in the movement have been consistently put on the sidelines. Figures such as Ella Baker and Dorothy Height describe their personal experiences of often being made subordinate to male leaders like MLK, despite the fact that they were the same skin color, fighting for the same cause.
Yeah, that's crazy, King. That's crazy.
I guess when he gave his famous "I have a dream" speech and declared that all men are created equal, he really only meant that all men are created equal. And he wasn't much better with women in his personal relationships either.
I knew they was gonna come for it.
Having been a serial cheater to his wife up until his assassination. In fact, as a deeply religious figure, MLK himself recognized the sinfulness of his infidelity and reportedly felt unworthy of the many accolades people place upon him, not wanting to be treated as a saint.
Wait, that's all they have to say for King? I thought it would be more dirt.
Who did want to be a saint and ended up becoming one is none other than Saint Teresa of Calcutta. With a name synonymous with selflessness, Mother Teresa continues to be admired around the world as a humanitarian icon, even receiving the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979. The best way to comprehend her impact on the world is by understanding that her primary objective wasn't really to reduce suffering, heal the sick, or even help the poor. Rather, it was to bring as many people to the Catholic Church as possible. Oftentimes, this objective happened to overlap with plenty of good things she did, like building schools and orphanages, feeding people, and taking in those with illnesses. But there were also plenty of moments when her objective didn't do much good and may have even done more harm to those she was supposedly helping. Many of the facilities Mother Teresa ran were observed as having extremely unhygienic conditions and a lack of actual medical staff.
Just go be a Catholic. Just come into the church and give your life to God. That's all. We don't care how you do it, when you do it, the conditions you're in, the conditions. Just come in and straight give your soul to God. Like shit.
Food and painkillers. A former volunteer revealed that dying patients were simply given aspirin rather than proper medication, and recalled how needles continue to be reused without being sterilized, which would be horrible today, but was even more horrible during the height of the AIDS epidemic. It gets even worse after you learn that Mother Teresa's organization would receive tens of millions of dollars every year, most of which is now believed to be held by the Vatican. Teresa's actions were based on her fundamentalist Catholic beliefs, like her view that poor people suffering in this world was actually a good thing. One saying, "There is something beautiful in seeing the poor accept their lot, to suffer it like Christ's passion. The world gains much from their suffering." It is from this framework of glorifying human pain where we can begin to understand why none of the hundreds of millions of dollars Mother Teresa received over the years went to bringing in doctors to actually help the sick, or why water heaters for washing and cleaning were refused, or why proper medication wasn't purchased. Additionally, a reporter who visited these facilities observed how volunteers would laugh about a boy who urinated while being tied to a bed and saw an older woman tied to a tree. In another orphanage, volunteers would tie up disabled children without batting an eyelid. There was clearly a general roughness toward
I didn't even
people in Mother Teresa's care. So despite being declared a saint by Pope Francis in 2015, to many of her critics, she was certainly anything but. What's the opposite of an old woman who's deeply religious, quiet, and conservative? A young man who's anti-religious, violent, and communist. Yet both are in the same category of those who are venerated by millions around the world while not actually being great people. I am, of course, talking about Mr. Ernesto Che Guevara, ubiquitous symbol for counterculture and rebellion. He tortured and executed hundreds of people and established Cuba's first military units to aid production, or concentration camps for short. Tens of thousands of intellectuals, gay people, priests, conscientious objectors, and really anyone who is considered antisocial such as hippies were targeted. Which is especially ironic considering that the very people who celebrate him today would be the exact types of people thrown into these forced labor camps or just straight up executed. Despite having this supposed morally superior ideology, Che referred to gay people as sexual perverts, Mexicans as a band of illiterate Indians, and black people as those magnificent examples of the African race who have maintained their racial purity thanks to their lack of affinity with bathing. Quite the progressive icon.
What the what?
What's probably the most ironic thing about Che the anti-capitalist that would have him rolling in his grave would be the fact that his iconic photograph has been making filthy capitalists filthy rich from the very moment he died, selling millions of posters, hats, flags, hoodies, backpacks, mouse pads, shirts, you name it, being commercialized and exploited more than possibly any other figure in human history. Today, his rockstar image to most people makes him less Lenin and more Lenin, which, speaking of the devil,
oh my God,
all time, there is no doubt that John Lennon, along with the rest of the Beatles,
he died when he was 40?
Not you, Ringo, forever changed the world of music. So it's quite understandable why millions of boomers, and frankly, even younger generations adore John Lennon for having created so many songs that continue to be popular to this day.
Bro, this video is coming for everybody, y'all. Everybody has their good and their bad. But then, like he said, you start to idolize these people, bro. All the bad starts to get brushed under the rug, and it shouldn't. This should be a wake-up call for a lot of people, bro. I've already distanced myself from ever like idolizing one. I don't see anybody above anyone or see anybody greater than anybody, even throughout their achievements. I see everybody as the same and as people.
Throughout his life, he was also famous for his commitment to love and peace, and became a symbol for it too. But it's a shame he didn't practice what he preached, given that he publicly confessed to having beaten women, cheated on his wife, treated their child like absolute garbage, and then left his family to be with Yoko Ono so they could make whatever the hell this is.
You see what I'm saying, bro? Come on, bro. How he became the face of peace and love. He didn't love his family. He didn't even love his own kid. Like, bro, I don't want to hear this shit, bro.
To imagine there was no heaven. He probably didn't expect to enter it anyways. But he's far from the only great person to have treated his significant other like crap. Take JFK, for instance. President beloved by Americans from both the left and right. Something that is impossible for any of our politicians today. And sure, part of it is the simple fact that JFK was young, attractive, and assassinated. Comparing that to the two candidates we currently have, where both of them are not young, not attractive, and not assassinated. But an even bigger reason is that we now live in a world where every issue, person, and news story is polarized to such an extent that people will have completely different facts on a subject based on where they get their sources from. Take, for instance, the story about Robert Kennedy Jr.'s Super Bowl ad for his presidential campaign that was very similar to an ad from his uncle, JFK, back when he was running for president. With Ground News, today's sponsor, I can see how there's a blind spot on the right for this story, with only 16 out of 119 sources coming from that side, possibly due to RFK's better approval among Republicans. I'm also able to back to JFK, the president we all know and love who was killed by... insert your favorite theory here. But he's also the president who was too busy cheating on his pregnant wife while partying in Europe to bother coming back home as she gave birth to their child, who ended up being stillborn. Guess who wasn't much better? Dr. Seuss, the man we all know and love for creating classic children's books like The Cat in the Hat, Green Eggs and Ham.
No, he's trying to ruin childhoods now. He's not Dr. He was already talking about Dr. King and Gandhi. Even Lenin. What the hell, Doctor? I know Dr. Seuss. I know Dr. Seuss is a person. I know he's not perfect. But for him to make it on this, he must have done some crazy shit.
Ooh, okay, not that one. Wait, not that one either. What the f? Oh, the Grinch Stole Christmas one. Wait. Green Eggs and Ham. Ooh.
What? Oh my God.
The Grinch Stole Christmas. The Lorax. And so many other stories. But even he, the man whose books touched the childhoods of every generation going all the way back to the boomers, reportedly had an affair, drove his wife of 40 years to suicide, and then married the new woman just 8 months later. Steve Jobs, or as I...
Nah, it's Dr. Seuss, yo. Yeah, we not reading no more Dr. Seuss books. Just read his books as it is. It's a Dr. Seuss book. And
told him in my previous video, Steve Apple is considered to be one of the greatest figures in the world of technology, putting aside the fact that he was more of the marketer rather than the creator for these Apple products we know this. We know this story. Regardless, in many aspects of his life, he was just a straight up bad father, partner, friend, boss, and well, person. From the beginning of his career, Steve Jobs tricked his fellow Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak into working day and night on a project for Atari by imposing an unnecessarily stressful deadline. They agreed to split the payout 50-50. But when Atari paid Jobs $5,000, he claimed they only received $700, and so gave his friend $350, who later cried when he found out about it. He also refused to provide his most loyal employees with stock options, which prompted the better Steve to try to do the right thing by giving the money out of his own personal share. Outside of being a terrible boss at Apple, Steve Jobs refused to pay a single dollar in child support for his daughter, and forced his partner to clean houses and live on welfare in order to raise their child. This is all while he was a multi-millionaire, and it wasn't until he was legally forced to provide payment when he finally gave in. On top of all that, he continued to publicly deny that the child was his, even after paternity tests proved that
you are the father.
Yo, what
And
the
one more
hell?
thing that might seem insignificant to some people, but what I think says a lot about his character. He would regularly park in handicap spots and drove without a license plate because he just didn't like how it made the car look. Yeah, just pure narcissism at its finest.
Yeah, something wrong with him,
so
bro.
at this
Hell
point,
no.
it seems clear that being smart doesn't prevent people from making stupid decisions.
Like, come on, bro.
Even
What
Albert Einstein,
Oh, I heard
whose
Albert
name
Einstein
is
was a
now
weirdo.
synonymous with genius, had serious flaws as a person. The physics prodigy was able to figure out four-dimensional space-time,
Einstein was
relativity
insane.
of simultaneity, kinematic and gravitational time dilation, length contraction, and most famously, mass-energy equivalence, but somehow couldn't figure out how to treat his wife and children like human beings. For one, there's no record of Einstein having ever bothered to meet his first child, and scholars believe that he and his wife gave her up to an orphanage. After having 2 more children with the same wife and deciding to keep them this time, he suddenly decided to start cheating on her with his own cousin. And you might assume that it was surely a third cousin twice removed or something, but nope, they were first cousins. Their moms were sisters. As if that wasn't bad enough, after his wife found out about the affair, she felt it was still better that Einstein stay with her for their 2 children. But he forced her to accept the following conditions. My clothes are kept in good order. I am served 3 meals a day in my room. We will have no personal relations or affection, unless we're out in public to keep up social appearances.
This man was horrible.
You must leave my bedroom or study immediately when I ask you to. In other words, he told her, clean and organize my clothes, make me breakfast, lunch, and dinner, do not touch me, and shut up and leave whenever I feel like it.
Einstein was, bro, he was the worst on this list. Oh my God. Arguably one of the smartest people in history. He was the worst person on this list. That's just crazy.
To add insult to injury, he would describe his wife as an unfriendly, humorless creature, writing, I treat my wife as an employee whom I cannot fire. She ended up having a nervous breakdown after he decided to still leave her and their 2 children and marry his first cousin. Now, one might have hoped that at the very least, he found his true love in his cousin and remained faithful to her happily ever after. But nah, if anything, he had even more affairs with women during his second marriage than his first. So it seems that if you're smart enough, enough, respected enough, talented enough, or die early enough, you can get away from the scrutiny of society and maintain a fairly positive legacy. Look, I'm not saying that we need to invalidate people's meaningful achievements just because they also did awful things. And I'm certainly not telling you to buy an Android or listen to the Beach Boys.
See, that's what I was trying to say, y'all. Exactly. Like, we gotta separate product and ideology, and we got to separate all these things from the actual human being. Because, so what, you just not gonna buy any Apple products now? You just gonna stop reading the awesome, great Dr. Seuss books to your children? Come on, you feel me? Like,
or be racist? Being a great person and being a great person are 2 very different things. But what's unfortunate about
video.
this world is that too often, we only seem to admire one of them when we should be celebrating both.
Literally.
Yes, we ought to be thankful for all the wonderful things these people did for us.
Exactly.
But we should be just as grateful for the great people in our lives that make life truly great.
Good ad video.
In the span of one video, I somehow managed to piss off British people, Indians, Americans, right-wingers, left-wingers, boomers, everyone, and worst of all, Apple fanboys. So in anticipation of the hate I'll be receiving, help me balance it out by giving this video a like.